Good morning. So good to see you here at the Peace Corps, and thank you, Lynn, for that warm welcome and kicking us off. As someone who has lived and worked in international development for over 30 years, I can't begin to tell you how wonderful it is to have you here at what I hope will become your home, away from home, the Peace Corps. I'm proud to join President Obama in welcoming you and honoring your work and commitment to service. You are the next generation of African leaders. As President Obama said yesterday at the forum, and I quote, in 1960, a candidate for president first proposed an idea for young people in our own country to devote a year or two abroad in service to the world. And that candidate, of course, was John F. Kennedy. And that idea would become the Peace Corps, one of the great partnerships with the world, including, of course, our wonderful partnerships with Africa. Also, yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet and talk with many of you during the reception. I have to tell you, I talked to about 10 or 15 of the members of this esteemed group, and it was inspiring. Every story, everything that you're doing inspired me. And I thought about how wonderful it is that tomorrow we're going to welcome you here at the Peace Corps. Before we begin the formal program, I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank Michelle Gavin and Ambassador Mary Yates, who's here with us today with the National Security Council, and also Bruce Warden with the State Department. Thank you for your support for this event and for joining us today. I also want to thank my great team, led by J.J. DeBella, Lynn Foden, who you heard from, and Esther Benjamin, and their wonderful colleagues who worked so hard to put together this wonderful event and to welcome you to the Peace Corps. Peace Corps has enjoyed a special relationship with the communities of Africa for over 50 years. Our volunteers' desire to make a difference has improved the lives of millions of people around the world and in their local communities when they return home. And you're going to hear from some of those Peace Corps volunteers today. The Peace Corps mission, as created and developed by our founders, President Kennedy and Sergeant Shriver. This auditorium is named after our legendary leader, Sergeant Shriver. But our mission is simple, but it's also, we believe, monumental. We merely want to promote world peace and friendship. Our model of service has been successful since 1961. We sent American volunteers overseas for 2 years at the request of a host government who has asked for our technical assistance. Throughout Peace Corps history, a central mission of our volunteers is to work alongside our host partners as they work to meet their own development priorities. Today, 200,000 Americans have volunteered to serve with the Peace Corps. Nearly 72,000 Americans have actually served in Africa, in many of the countries where you, of course, are from. Perhaps some of you have your own personal stories about the Peace Corps volunteers you met or knew over the years. I heard a few of those stories last night, as a matter of fact. And of course, we would all be delighted if you would continue to share those stories while you are with us here today. Today, nearly 8,000 Americans are serving in Peace Corps countries, 77 countries overseas. 3,300 volunteers are serving in 29 countries in Africa. Our Africa programs represent nearly 40% of our volunteers worldwide. We have been honored in recent years by being invited to expand our programs and partnerships in Africa. Over the last 2 years, Peace Corps volunteers have re-entered Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Rwanda to work with local communities on education and public health initiatives. The founders of Peace Corps understood that volunteering is something done best when it is based on the principle of cooperation. We know we have a great deal to learn and that our partner countries have a great deal to teach us. We also know that volunteering is not something we are uniquely exporting to countries abroad. The culture and history of service or volunteering, called by many different names in many different countries, we know is alive and well in all the countries where you are from. We have learned that one way in which we can add value to the types of community development efforts in which many of you are involved as young leaders today is to learn to become catalysts of positive change in their communities and to support grassroots organizations as they mobilize community members to volunteer. One of the tools we have developed to help volunteers and their partners, and one of the resources that today we plan to share with you later on, is what we call our V2 guide, Volunteerism Action Guide, multiplying the power of service. We hope that our upcoming panel and breakout session will be an opportunity to explore this model of service. While the call to service is the foundation of Peace Corps, we're also grateful to see this call growing exponentially around the world, and you represent this call to service. In Ghana this time last year, President Obama challenged African youth when he said, "You can serve in your communities and harness your energy and education to create new wealth and build new connections to the world. You can conquer disease and end conflicts and make change from the bottom up. You can do all that. And you, the people in this room, are terrific young leaders. You're doing this every day. That's why we're so pleased to see you with us here." Thank you. It's my honor to welcome you to the Peace Corps today. Thank you for your commitment to service, and I look forward to hearing about your experiences and ideas throughout the forum. Now, before we begin the panel and the larger conversation on service and the emphasis is on sustainable public engagement, I would like to share with you a brief video about Peace Corps. This video is an introduction to our history, our legacy, and our sincere hope in the power of promoting world peace and friendship throughout this wonderful world that we live in, where we are so interconnected. So what you're about to see is our story. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you during the rest of the day.